Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced £12 billion worth of extra defence funding as part of the government's Strategic Defence and Security Review. He plans to spend the money on two 5,000-strong strike brigades, additional F-35 jets, maritime patrol aircraft and high-altitude drones. Here's a reminder of the Prime Minister's statement and Jeremy Corbyn's response.
So over the course of this Parliament, our priorities are to deter state-based threats, to tackle terrorism, to remain a world leader in cybersecurity, and ensure we have the capability to respond rapidly to crises as they emerge. And to meet these priorities, we will continue to harness all the tools of national power available to us, coordinated through the National Security Council to deliver a full spectrum approach. This includes support for our armed forces, counter-terrorism, international aid and diplomacy, and working with our allies to deal with the common threats that face us all.
At the moment, this country's overwhelming focus is on the threat we face from terrorism and how we can best ensure the defeat of ISIL. Labour supports the increased expenditure to strengthen our security services that is announced to protect against the threat of terrorism. However, faced with the current threat, the public will not understand or accept any cuts to frontline policing. We're naturally focused on the immediate threats today, but it's disappointing there is insufficient analysis in the national security strategy of the global threats facing our country and people around the world. Inequality, poverty, disease, human rights abuses, climate change and water and food security. I've no idea why members opposite find food security such a funny subject.
Most of his statement was spent talking about the importance of having troops within the UN, the importance of shipbuilding on the Clyde, the importance of investing in defence, the importance of having high morale amongst our armed forces. Yet only 2 months ago he said this: why do we have to be able to have planes, transport aircraft, aircraft carriers and everything else to get anywhere in the world? Why? Is it the same honourable gentleman that's now sitting opposite us, thinking of all these uses for our armed forces, when just a few months ago he thought there were none?
Alan Johnson, what did you make of Jeremy Corbyn's performance there?
It wasn't his finest hour, but it's difficult to respond to these issues. I think the general issue about Jeremy is he believes very strongly in the issues he's been involved in the past, whether it's Stop the War, whether it's CND, and he's not going to change. He was elected as leader with all of that, and he's not going to suddenly change overnight. And it might cause him the odd difficulty at certain debates across the dispatch box on the defence spending review. But by and large, I think it was a refreshing change to have people say, look, this is what I've always believed in and this is what I believe in now. And I'm not going to change it because I happen to have been elected as leader of the party. I
mean, it was empty towards the end, actually, when I was watching yesterday. There were hardly any Labour MPs on the benches behind Jeremy Corbyn at one point. And the Conservative benches, they were chatting all the way through. They weren't really listening to what Jeremy Corbyn was saying. Is that the sort of profile you want for the leader of the Labour Party?
I would suspect that the expectation was that the Defence Secretary was going to announce the result of the Defence Spending Review and that Vernon Coker, who's our Shadow Defence Secretary, would have been responding. So it's a surprise to me that the Prime Minister did it himself. That means that Jeremy, as Leader of the Opposition, would have to do it. But that's
as you've got more faith in Vernon Coker than you have in Jeremy Corbyn.
But it just looks to me as if Jeremy was kind of the last minute sort of drafted in. It's not an issue he'd have been steeped in. As I'm not steeped in it, actually, in terms of defence policy. And there was some...
You're not leader of the Labour Party.
There was some... No, I'm not. But there were some issues there that I think it was right for Jeremy to raise. So his general point was, look, you can defend your country, of course, with new weapons and replacing weapons, etc. But the issues that cause wars are in relation to food and hunger and water security, etc. So they're valid points to raise.
Are you, as you say, Why are some of the parliamentary colleagues in the Labour Party surprised by Jeremy Corbyn? I mean, he is sticking to his principles. He hasn't changed his views. And yet there are MPs, you might call them Blairite moderate MPs, who have openly defied him in the House of Commons on things like shoot to kill, on the fact that he said Jihadi John should have been arrested, not killed by a drone attack. I mean, is that right for MPs who know what Jeremy Corbyn stands for to openly defy their leader in the House?
Well, I think Jeremy Corbyn's the last person to be talking about MPs defying the leadership, because that's part of what Jeremy's been doing for the last 30-odd years. No, I think there's getting used... Actually, whoever won that leadership election, this would be a tough time for us.
Sure.
In terms of the new leader.
In terms of that question, is it right
themselves.
for MPs like Ian Austin and Emma Reynolds and Pat McFadden to stand up and defy?
It's right for them to stand up at parliamentary Labour Party meetings and state their views. That's what the PLP is about.
But what about in the Commons? Should they be doing it there?
Well, no. You're referring to the statement that the Prime Minister made last week. And in actual fact, Jeremy Corbyn changed his comment on shoot to kill. And I think a lot of people there were making it very plain, in the light of the Paris attack, that yes, we must ensure that our security services are properly equipped to deal with this
Jeremy
threat.
Corbyn was wrong?
Jeremy Corbyn was wrong to say that shoot to kill for Jihadi John, as he was
Are you worried? Are you worried about Labour trailing so far behind in the polls? And the latest one has them 15 points behind the Conservatives in the national polls.
But there was a Murray poll day before yesterday showed Tories on 37, Labour on 35. So you have to... I mean, the polls get really interesting as you get closer to a general election. At the moment, I don't think anyone should be driven by the polls.
Right, so you're not...
Am I worried about... I want Labour to be back in power. That is the whole
And can they be under Jeremy Corbyn in your mind?
We're seeing what's happened after we lost the election. I think anyone who was elected leader in this last election would be given a period of about, let's say, 2 years. There was talk about people only standing for a certain period, then having another election. I think the Labour Party would be very reluctant to go into another general election with a leadership that didn't look as if they could win that general election. And that would have counted if Liz had won it, or if Andy had won it, or if Yvette had won it.
Does it work having a section of the parliamentary party at total odds with the leader of that party over key issues, whether it be defence, national security? Because at the moment there is a party within a party.
It's very difficult. You have to have the confidence of the parliamentary Labour Party to lead the Labour Party. There are some people who believe that the answer to that is to change the parliamentary Labour Party. That ain't going to happen. You have to have the confidence of the political party that you're leading in Parliament. You remember Margaret Thatcher resigned because she got, close on 200 votes in that first round, but went because she didn't have sufficient support. That is vitally important.
All right. Well, we've been joined now by Simon Hardy, a spokesman for the Left Unity Party, which over the weekend voted to suspend its plans to stand in next year's election and support Jeremy Corbyn instead. Tell us why.
Well, Left Unity was set up only 3 or so years ago, very much in response to the fact that a lot of people felt that the Labour Party wasn't standing up for the kind of values that they wanted. Now, with someone like Jeremy Corbyn leading the Labour Party, I think it's beholden on anyone who shares his values and principles to really get stuck in and try and make sure that he can make a good job of being leader of that party.
So you're confident that Jeremy Corbyn will be able to remould the Labour Party in his image?
I think he absolutely has to, because if you look at the drift in the Labour Party, the fact that so many of its core voters are leaving that party now, the fact that so many of their strategists think the only way that they can win elections is by trying to be a kind of shadow of what the Tory party is saying. Jeremy Corbyn is the best hope for the Labour Party to try and turn that around, win back those people and put principles of social justice at the heart of mainstream politics in Britain today. Right.
Do you agree, Alan Johnson? Before you've just been a light version of the Tory party.
No, it's kind of rubbish I've heard spouted all my political life. This guy needs to be in a different political party. The question is whether he thinks he can bring his party into the Labour Party, which is a democratic socialist
party. Jeremy Corbyn is taking over, the accusation goes, various arms of the Labour Party to try and mould it into his own image.
The thing about Jeremy Corbyn is he never went off onto some adventurism forming organisations to stand against the Labour Party and to fight against the Labour Party. This guy despises the Labour Party and he's got no place in the Labour Party.
Right. What do you say to that, Simon?
Well, I'm not a member of the Labour Party, and I certainly don't despise the Labour Party that Jeremy Corbyn represents and is trying to represent. No, the Labour Party that this country needs is
he's
a
middle class. He's a middle class intellectual.
Let him finish. Go on.
I know that you're bitter because your candidate didn't win the election, but you need to let me speak because you're being a bit rude. The point is that Jeremy Corbyn is a mainstream politician which is against austerity, he's against war, he's against racism, he's against nuclear weapons.
Well, we're all against that.
Thank you. And a lot of people are responding to that message. That's why thousands of people are joining the Labour Party now. They're not joining it because of Liz Kendall or Yvette Cooper. They're joining it because of Jeremy Corbyn. If people like you were to get behind Jeremy and the kind of politics that he represents, the Labour Party might have a fighting chance on a national and local level of being able to change this country for the better. That's not rubbish. That's common sense.
I've been with Jeremy all the time as a Labour Member of Parliament. He never went off onto one of these flights of fancy. I've been with Jeremy.
He never agreed with you, though, Alan
While we
Johnson,
introduced the minimum wage, when we introduced the education maintenance allowance, when we introduced Sure Start children's centres, when we reduced child poverty, when we attacked pensioner poverty, when we gave trade unionists the right to be represented, the right not to be sacked for going on strike. You've done none of that. All you've done is print out your leaflets despising the Labour Party and suggest that over here there's a plausible alternative. Now you've found that that doesn't work, so you now want to come into the Labour Party. You won't be welcome.
Simon?
Well, I mean, if Alan Johnson is saying that trade unionists, anti-war campaigners, anti-racist activists up and down the country who are attracted to parties like Left Unity or even the Green Party are not welcome in the Labour Party, I think that is a very...
I'm an anti-racist. What makes you different from me? I'm an anti-racist.
OK, excellent. And those are the kind of values that we need at the heart of the Labour Party, campaigning to defend migrants,
but those are the principles
at the heart
of the Labour Party. Those are the principles at the heart of the Labour Party and have always been the principles.
Alan
all this
let me just
Tory
ask,
light rubbish.
Let me just ask Simon Hardy, have you been welcomed into the Labour Party, or are you welcomed by Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, I mean, as I said before, I haven't joined the Labour Party.
No, I didn't say that you joined, but are you welcomed by the Labour Party? Has Jeremy Corbyn welcomed your move?
I don't think we've had an official response from Jeremy Corbyn or the Labour Party yet, but I know that Jeremy Corbyn, in various interviews I've seen, has said that he welcomes people with the same values as him, very similar to the values that I have, joining the Labour Party and fighting to make it the kind of party that can win the election in 2020. And I think, you know, Alan's response to that, I think, is indicative of the kind of undermining that is going on by some people in the Labour Party and the right-wing press who are attacking Jeremy or casting doubt on him day in, day out, because I'm not sure that they're really behind the 60% of the Labour Party members that voted for Jeremy Corbyn to become leader of that party.
Well, let's just put that to, are you undermining?
I'm attacking him.
Are you undermining? And should some of your parliamentary colleagues stop undermining Jeremy Corbyn?
We should back our leader, our elected leader. That's what we should do.
Right. No more undermining than either publicly or
That's what
private.
I've always said, but we shouldn't allow people to suggest that anti-racism is somehow the preserve of some left-wing students' union group who have now decided to join
which says it
the
shares
Labour
the
Party.
same platform as Jeremy Corbyn. But anyway, Simon Hardy, thank you very much.
Thank you.